Subscribe, like, comment and share to support the channel. Thank you for the support.
As Shaka continues to dance around Damien endlessly, Damien was focused on something as he sat near the fire. Notifications appear to inform him that the oracle has been activated, and to try again shortly. But seeing the multiple windows of the same notifications made him wonder why it kept popping up. He knew that traditionally, oracles are given to humans after they ask God a question, but aren't I closer to the opposite of that right now? Was the question he had in mind as he recalled being summoned to this place. Shaka appears and starts to complain to Damien about why he was just sitting there, which startles him. He apologizes to Shaka and got up, thinking that it was good that he was able to meet Shaka without getting beat up. Shaka then asks Damien to explain why he didn't visit them all this time. But seeing Shaka's annoyed face was unbelievable to Damien, as he couldn't believe that this kid, who acts so childish to him, is an equal of the Queen of Gods, Arya, in the mainstream, the unprecedented god of darkness who stands over all darkness. So, Damien just tells him that he was busy. Shaka wasn't impressed by his answer and called him a liar. He complained that he was so bored and that his friends had even waited for him too. Damien kneels to apologize once again and tells him that he would come more often. He thought about how no matter how strong of a god Shaka is, no man is an island. Shaka hears this from Damien and warns him to not do that again from now on. Damien stood up and replied that he understood, but was also relieved to see that he had these chicks with him. Shaka then wonders if Damien had brought presents with him with a smile on his face. Damien thought about the present just as a quest notification appeared called the condition of reconciliation. The quest explains that reconciliation means that he must resolve any negative emotions towards each other. There is nothing better than a genuine present when reconciling with an old acquaintance. Let us try to ease the anger of someone with all our hearts and feelings who we want to reconcile with. The quest type was epic and tells Damien to give an item that the target might like. Damien couldn't believe that the game was trying to rip him off so blatantly as he continued to stare at the window. With his inventory now opened, Damien was confused to see it suddenly open, while Shaka on the other hand was happy to see it. He wonders why Damien had brought so much with him as he stares at his inventory with stars in his eyes. Seeing the greed in his eyes, prompted Damien to tell him to wait a second to calm down, but Shaka simply grabs Damien's inventory off him. This action shocks Damien, as he couldn't believe that you could just take someone else's inventory like that. Shaka went on to remove everything from Damien's inventory as he pulled out each item one by one. Damien could only scream in horror over this sight. Multiple windows appear to inform Damien that he had been robbed of numerous items. But all he could do was scream and wail as he thought about how the game knew he was being robbed, then they should stop it. Damien decides to chase after Shaka, who continues to hold onto his inventory. Damien chases him around the fire till a notification appears to inform him that the seventh god Shaka likes his present, and questions him if he wanted to give Shaka a present. Knowing that the quest was mandatory, Damien knew that he had to press yes. Shaka's eyes begin to glow once again as he finally spots an item that he found cool. Damien looks at him with displeasure as he asks what he was taking out now. Shaka shows the destruction orb fragment piece in his hand with a smile on his face, asking Damien if he was going to give him this. But our boy couldn't believe that Shaka wanted that thing amongst everything else. But he decides to think about it as Shaka waves it in front of him. He thought about how maybe this robbery in the pretext of an oracle is because of that. There must be a reason why this situation came to be. So, he decides to press yes while cursing over the fact that he had been robbed just like that. Notifications appear to tell him that he had cleared the quest and that his favorability of the seventh god Shaka has risen to 100%. After receiving the gift, Shaka continued to speed around in circles like a speedster non-stop. Seeing his reaction made Damien wonder if he was a track and field athlete. But Shaka soon comes to a stop, telling Damien that since he had given him a present, then he should give him one too. Damien was alarmed by the sudden kindness as Shaka placed his finger onto his body and told Damien to take his present. A purple light started to appear as Damien wondered what Shaka was doing to him, but he soon recognized the feeling that was inside his body in the form of a purple orb. Shaka's eyes held a certain madness as he continued to give his gift to Damien. The purple light had now engulfed Damien's entire body. He then reappears back onto the bed that he had left before. He started to breathe heavily and questioned if he was back. Bundle appears by his side and questions where he went, but all Damien wanted to know was how much time had passed. Bundle wondered what the hell he was talking about as he tells Damien that only 10 seconds had passed since he vanished into the book. Damien couldn't believe what Bundle said, which caused him to attack Damien. As Bundle continues to attack Damien, he wonders if it was all just a dream. But he was certain that what he felt was too distinct to have been a dream, as the purple orb of light remained inside his body. A notification appears to inform him that a strong surge of darkness has filled his body, and that the seventh god's Shaka's power was reconfiguring his manhwa. Damien started to feel pain in his body as the purple orb within it started to react even more heavily. Another notification tells him that his incomplete manhwa is now forming its complete shape. His face was filled with pain as he struggled to breathe as the notification window showcased the percentage slowly increasing. Damien lets out one final scream of pain as the percentage reaches 100%. A notification informs him that it was a success. His manhwa is now complete and has formed a new ring. His body has knocked down an unknowable wall and developed into a higher stage. But he curses out loud over the fact that the purple orb wasn't stopping. Bundle was worried and asked what was wrong, but Damien could feel the change in his body now. He felt that the wall that was stopping him on level 60 was now gone, as his stats showed that he was now level 70. His skill window now contained over 7 new skills. He finally understood the meaning of the oracle upon seeing it. This is a new beginning. The Witch Doctor class was now changing. Seeing that his Witch Doctor class was changing, Damien felt that he should test it out now. And so, he did. Damien leapt and ran around the room with a mad fury look in his eyes. He smiled as he could definitely feel that the flow of mana in his body had increased. He even practiced the 1-inch punch, which unleashed a purple aura around his body as he tested it out. He felt that his body and class were definitely up, which was absurd to him. He noted that it must be S rank or might even be SSS rank. Damien had basically formed a new circle. If his sixth sense activates here, he might be able to raise his senses like from his devoted days. Bundle was enraged by Damien's actions as he tells him that even though he was basically naked, he was super fast. Damien was pleased to hear that and replied that his body was indeed awesome. As he laid down on the bed, Damien thought about how he needed to get some gear right now, while Bundle was furious at him for taking all the space, which made it hard for him to lay down as well. But a pigeon with a letter tied around its neck started to peck against the window of Damien's room. He hears the noise and goes on to open the window. Picking the letter from its neck made him wonder what it was. It was written from Maria Jones, who tells him if he doesn't come immediately, she would kill him so that others couldn't even find his corpse. This message sends chills down Damien and Bundle's body as they read it themselves, as Damien had totally forgotten about it. The scene changes to a beautiful city called the Holy Theocracy Orinus's capital Upatel. A divine estate with glowing waters is seen where someone sat in the middle of it on a throne. It turns out to be Arya, the goddess of light. Mamma mia, her eyes remain closed as she stares up, but she slowly opens them after some time has passed. She could see that there was a black star in the sky. The star of darkness that swallowed everything is brewing. She wonders how something that had already died once is reappearing once again now. But the black star started to crack and reveal a red aura inside of it, which she sees. Staring at it held no more purpose as she closed her eyes once again. Tens of millions of years ago, she definitely dropped that star, and yet it was still emitting such a strong energy. Arya then decided she needed to make preparations. She casts the spell called Light Aura to call her family. Calling forth her own version of a book just like Damien's, it was called the White Pledge Book that calls the creation of the world. We now return to the Adventurers Guild, where Damien excitedly opens the door to a room, but is greeted with a sharp pen thrown at a high speed towards him. Damien manages to spot it and bends his neck backwards enough to dodge it while a voice speaks out that she missed. Upon closer inspection of the pen, Damien could see that it was the fountain pen of an employee of the Adventurers Guild. Hatson looks at Maria, who understood what he meant. She looks at Damien with a fearsome look on her face, asking him if he finally came. But Damien was still suffering from the shock of the sudden attack, asking Hatson if he could do anything, but he simply gives a thumbs up and tells Damien to figure it out himself, as even he didn't know what was going on. Maria then grabs onto Damien's face and tells him to focus on her since it had been a long time since they had seen one another. Damien had no choice but to reply with "Yes, mommy." Maria was upset that Damien managed to come back alive but didn't even contact her, which made her think he was dead. Damien replied back that he was sorry and tried to contact her immediately. Damien asks her if she waited long, as he thought about how Maria was the one who sent him to Aldean Fortress, which made him feel bad about this. Maria noted that she wasn't very patient but couldn't believe that she was worried over someone she had an eye on. But her anger soon subsides as she tells him to not do that next time. She then tells him that they should deal with balancing the mission accounts. They proceed to head somewhere else. They walk down a few stairs which were lit with torches. Damien was quick to notice that the place they were headed to was somewhere that wouldn't be an exaggeration to say is the most important place and is the core of the Adventurers Guild. It prides itself on having better defense than most kingdoms, the heart of the Adventurers Guild, the safe. Maria asked him if it was the first time he was here. He replied yes, as it was his first time since regressing. Normally, it's called a vault, and it's the place where each department's mission rewards and commodities are managed. It's only open for mercenaries who are receiving an amount higher than the fixed amount. Damien's face was filled with shock as Maria led him to somewhere else. She introduces him to vault number 1492, which was his. Seeing his vault made him recall the version of himself when he was a devoted before regressing. Maria soon questions Damien about what he did, which he was unaware of till Maria continues to question him about what he had to do for the fussy nerds at Aldean Fortress to favor him. Hearing the word nerds made Damien slowly realize who she meant by that. She then tells him that if he was curious, then he needed to hurry and place his hand here on the magic circle, as once the vault opens, he would understand what she meant. The moment Damien placed his hand on the vault magic circle, a notification informed him that his mana was resonating with the safe's magic technique. Another notification informs him that it was a success. He can now use the safe's vault function as the vault door opens. A bright light was casted which causes Damien to cover his eyes from its blinding light. Seeing the amount of gold and equipment made Damien think that he could swim in here. Damien questioned Bundle on whether this was a dream, as he couldn't believe that all this gold was his. Seeing the disgusting look on Damien's face made Bundle slap him repeatedly as he tells Damien to get a grip. Maria informs him that she was going to quickly explain the rewards he received. Fast forwarding at lightspeed, she ended the rewards list by telling Damien he had received a total of 7 million gold excluding the commander's special reward. Maria was impressed by her skills on having an eye for people, while Damien was super happy about the rewards. He immediately translated the 7 million gold as being around $60,000. As he swam in the gold coins, he couldn't believe that he was getting paid this well. But he soon takes notice of the equipment laid out in the corner of the room. He notices that there was a letter in its belt and proceeds to read it. The letter wrote, "To Damien, it was an honor to be able to fight together on the battlefield, soldier." It turns out that the equipment and letter were both from Giorno. Damien couldn't believe this and felt kind of touched by his act of grace. Maria then claps her hands to inform Damien that there was one last thing. She presented him a golden case and noted that this was probably the best gift. Damien took it from her and slowly opened it up. "Holy moly!" shouted Damien as he finally saw what it was, a platinum badge. Maria congratulates him for entering the top 20% of mercenaries. Damien was now a platinum-tiered mercenary. Damien sat at the town's fountain, still shocked over the fact that he was now a platinum-tier mercenary. He continues to stare at the badge in his hand. He noted that although the difficulty level of the missions will get higher, what he can do as a mercenary will diversify. But this wasn't all that he got. A window appears with the title of Survivor of the Battlefield, a title given to someone who survives a fierce battle that was not possible to survive in. It seems to contain a strong will that does not come from normal people. He had also received another title called Narrow Escape, a title given to one who has repeatedly escaped death's strong grip. It is as if the user is able to survive from any hopeless situation. Seeing that he has these two titles, Damien thought that this might be enough, while Bundle questioned him about what he was saying about being enough. As he rubs Bundle's face, Damien tells him that it would be okay to slowly leave this place, but Bundle was curious about what he meant by that. He explains that he had done everything he could do here, and before he knew it, Damien had reached level 70. Staring at the window, Damien knew that for normal classes, this level would mean the third occupation change. He places a dot on a map, stating that farming there would be limited. Nothing good will come out from staying in one place for a long time. So he decides that they should go to the central part now. But he questions himself on whether they should reset the items for now. Bundle tells him that they should. Damien started to look through his inventory for any good items just as a group of golden armor players started to walk past him. One of the members started to trip over a piece of broken pavement and fell head first in front of Damien. The player curses out loud before asking Damien about where he was looking. He shouts at our boy, asking him if didn't see him passing by. But both of them knew that the broken piece of pavement was the reason why he tripped. The player didn't want to admit it, so he continued to taunt Damien while another member of the group went to ask him about what happened. The player tells him and points to Damien that he was the one responsible for tripping him. Damien could only look at them and figure that they were a group. Judging from the fancy insignia on their chest, Damien figured that they must be quite a famous brotherhood. But his eyes soon widened as he figured out their insignia. It was the Emperor's Blood Alliance. This was the crest for the Emperor Blood Alliance, the place that Jung Yuman, the a-hole, is the leader of. The group then started to taunt and mock Damien, calling him a newbie who was scared of them. Their taunts and insults started to really anger our boy as he tried his best to contain his anger. But he soon explodes and grabs onto his hand, telling and warning the player to keep going their way. He continues to twist the player's arm into an awkward position, causing him pain as Damien continues to warn him to not start a fight with the wrong person. He continues to hold back his anger, knowing full well that this a-hole belonged to the Emperor's Blood Alliance, which made him want to tear him to shreds. But Damien held back, taking in a deep breath. He knew that he didn't have the equipment yet, so he needed to hold back. As he slowly lets go of the player's hand, he tells him that he must have misunderstood, and that he had tripped over the jagged stone himself. The player was acting like an NPC, as he shoves Damien's arm away and told him to let go, you bastard. Seeing his reaction to Damien made his other members amazed at what he did. Damien then reminded them to keep going on their pretty way, but the player still decided to pick a fight with our boy as he tried to pull out his sword. But the guards of the city soon appeared and shouted at him. They warned the player that using weapons in the square is forbidden. The other members of the squad hears this and tell him that they shouldn't make a scene else they get marked by the troops. Hearing the word troops made Damien realize that this group were only common knights. As he understood that the Lord held the highest, Vice Lord the second, Escort Knights the third, Troop Knights the fourth, and the bottom dwellers were the common knight and apprentice knights. This made him wonder if the group were afraid of their higher-ups, but his thoughts were cut short as the player yelled at Damien to follow him to the hall. Damien was annoyed with this lil bitch but figured that there was no use in bluffing anymore, so he decided to follow the group of players who were walking to their deaths. As he walked, Damien knew that because of the war with the Azure Dragons, there's been more attention to the Emperor Blood Alliance, so there are quite a lot of onlookers as seen from the crowd that were talking amongst themselves. Damien tells the player that he didn't want to make this embarrassing, so he figured that they should end things quickly as he was busy. But the player continues to scold Damien, telling him that if he wanted to get destroyed, then he should keep talking. But a member of his group tells him to calm down, and advises him that if he wants to do something, he should do it at the gate. The player then turns to Damien to tell him to follow him as he would be dead today. Seeing his face filled with anger made Damien figure out more or less about what kind of bastard he is now. He noted that the player was like a high school bully. It was unsightly how drunk he was on attention. His face looks like he believes that he has become the protagonist of a movie. As they neared the gate, he turned around once again to tell Damien that he couldn't run now. Damien then heads into the gate first, much to the surprise of the player. He had been wrapped to the Fighter Street Endless Hall, where a tower so tall that it was covered by the clouds stood. Seeing the tower gave Damien a sense of nostalgia, as this was a neutral zone that adventurers can enter through the gate. And a ferocious battlefield where adventurers are ranked by battle. A scene out of Gladiator is shown as players fought one another while the crowd cheers and bets on whomever would win. This was a place where the strongest person owns the highest place of the tower. This was the place that made Damien a devoted in his last life. The player soon arrives as well and proceeds to shout at Damien, calling him a mannerless asshole for going in first without a reply. But his shouts and taunts meant nothing to Damien as he made his way towards the massive doors of the tower. A notification appears to welcome him to the Endless Hall. Damien knew that although there are a lot of people who want to test their own abilities, there were also a lot of bastards who would use this to legally destroy others. They soon arrive at a stand holding up a blue orb, with a notification asking Damien that if he agrees with the clauses, please reach your hand out to the sign. The player, being impatient, shouts at Damien to follow what the notification stated. The player turns out to be called Koharu, who invites Damien to free mode. Damien tells him that he talks too much and has a foul mouth, which irritates Koharu even more. Damien stretches out his hand to agree as he knew that he had no reason to reject. Both of them were soon teleported to the Field of Honor, a place that looks like an arena where gladiators fought one another like in ancient Rome. As Damien equipped the Night Crow equipment, he looked out his window and wondered if it was working. Kaharu saw this and shouted at him about what he was doing right now. Damien informs him that he was filming their battle so he wouldn't go back on his words later on, but Kaharu simply replied that he was an insane bastard. Damien went on to ask him, as a member of the Peerless Emperor Blood Alliance, was scared that he would lose to a newbie. Hearing those words made Kaharu even more angry as he continued to shout out loud. He then warns Damien that he should do what he wants and just get ready to be destroyed. But our boy tells him that that was something he should do instead. The moment Kaharu placed his hand on the handle of his sword, Damien disappeared in an instant. Kaharu then felt something behind him in that same moment and turned around to see what it was. Damien appears with his fist raised high and tells him hi. With a mighty hit that causes an explosion, Damien's fist meets the a-hole dead-on. As he makes his way towards Kaharu, who appears to be knocked out from a single blow, Damien tells him to get up. Stop exaggerating, member of the Peerless the Emperor Blood Alliance. Kaharu couldn't believe what just happened to him as he faced the ground with shock written all over his face. He couldn't even see Damien move at all. But our boy shows no mercy as he continues to land another blow onto him. He warns Kaharu that if he doesn't block, he will lose. The punch lands onto the a-hole's face as Kaharu wonders what class Damien had. Seeing Damien's stance made him conclude that he was a pure strength-based physical class. He sees a chance to leap out of harm's way and looks at Damien with murder in his eyes, telling him that he was going to kill him. Kaharu pulls out 2 blades to reveal his dual blader skill. Casting a tornado-like skill called Fatal Storm, Kaharu rushes back to counterattack Damien with a dual blader's innate skill. Damien easily sees the attack coming and knew that blocking it was crazy, so he needed to dodge it, which he does easily as he reappears beside Kaharu, taunting him about how slow he was even though he was probably an assassin class. Kaharu could only give Damien the bombastic side eye as he questions him on how he dodged the skill. Opening his window in the middle of the fight, Damien knew that after changing jobs, his skills changed into something new, which made him wonder if he should try using them. He looked through the skill list and came upon something that was good for the moment. Damien had selected the Blood's Craving skill. Kaharu could see that Damien was smiling for some unknown reason to him and shouts at him while rushing to stab our boy. As he rushed over to Damien, Kaharu splits himself into 3 other clones, shadow clones, the ninja way. The crowd watched with shock over this new skill and figured that Kaharu was serious about this fight now. Damien knew that the clones were simply mirror images, unlike the Kunoichi class shadow clone technique, where the clones are substantial. Kaharu warns Damien that he was screwed now, but Damien wore a smile on his face, wanting to know who was the one that was actually screwed. Just as the mirror images reached Damien, he used the witch doctor skill called Blood's Craving. He disappeared and reappeared with punches as gifts to all of Kaharu's mirror images. His attack sends him flying with a huge explosion as Kaharu coughs blood while thinking that it made no sense. A blood shield started to form around Damien just as he was thinking of ending the fight right now. Kaharu on the other hand started to panic as he breathed heavily, knowing that he was definitely going to die. The crowd watches on and couldn't believe that a member of the Emperor Blood Alliance couldn't even beat a normal adventurer. A member of his group started to scold Kaharu, shouting at him to get up, and that losing would make them all look like fools. But a member of the crowd soon recognizes the equipment that Damien was wearing. They realized that Damien was the player from the defense of Aldean Fortress. The streamers in the crowd started to announce the news that one of the members of the Emperor Blood Alliance was fighting Teacher Da from the defense of Aldean Fortress and is getting crushed. They also commented that it was insane that Damien was also a platinum-tier adventurer. A member of Kaharu's group scolded the streamers and ordered them to end their streams right now. We return to the moment where Damien was about to bitch slap the poop out of Kaharu's face as he stood there in silence. As Damien gives each bitch slap across Kaharu's face, he tells him to respond when he talks to him. But Kaharu still held onto his blade, thinking that to wait just a bit more. Damien continues to taunt the poor little boy, asking him if he was crying right now. But Kaharu's face was filled with an intense hatred which was alarming to Damien. Kaharu then shouts out a dual blader skill as he raises both of his blades into the air. He summoned a bunch of chains that appeared from underneath the ground using the skill called Chain Ascension. The chains immediately went towards Damien, who instantly leapt back the moment the skill was casted. Seeing that the chains were about to hit him, Damien thought that Kaharu was pretty good since he was trying to buy time until he could get up. As Kaharu continued to cast the skill, Damien was still able to dodge it, knowing that it would be 30 seconds at most, and by his calculations, the fight was going to end soon. As Damien finally landed back on his feet, the chains stopped just inches away from his face. It appears that the chains had started to disappear, which was according to what Damien had predicted. He noted that this was quite fun as the chains started to disappear, but realized that his back was against the wall, which was what Koharu wanted in the first place. And that this was the moment that Koharu had planned as he shouted that it was all done. A red symbol started to appear on his forehead as he casted another skill. Using the dual blader skill, Koharu had summoned the Asura. A mythical figure appeared and stood alongside him. Damien sees his skill and calls him a psycho. He knew that Koharu was burning his own mana, so that he could increase his physical abilities. An extreme continuous dealing move where the blades won't stop until one side dies. The moment Koharu disappears from where he stood, Damien was able to see where he was going as he turned his head. With more arms and blades on his back, Koharu lets out a battle cry as he attempts to land a hit on our boy. His face was filled with nothing but the Asura marking on his forehead. Damien decides to meet his attack head-on, knowing that this was Koharu's lethal move. But it wasn't going to work on Damien as he simply uppercuts the poop out of Koharu's face. But his attack didn't stop Koharu as his attacks continued on. Damien speculated that this was because of the Asura mode. Damien could feel that Koharu's arms and legs were moving separately, as if someone else was controlling him. Damien then tells him that he was confident in his speed too, just as he saw it earlier on. "Is your final struggle over now?" questioned Damien as he faced Koharu head-on with a smile on his face. Koharu too decides to fight head-on in response. The two titans continued to battle it out with one another.
Thanks for watching the latest part from the voice of Manhwa. Subscribe for more content and don't forget to comment below what you want to see in the future. Like and share for more.